Today we move from painting to sculpture, and that shifts matter. A painting is usually encountered at a distance, front-facing. Sculpture something you meet in the space. You walk around it, you feel its scale, and your body becomes part of the experience. So our theme is body memory psychology. In modern and contemporary art, sculpture often uses the body to express things you cannot easily photograph or describe, like anxiety, vulnerability, desire, trauma, and private memory. Sometimes the body is shown directly, sometimes is absent, fragmented, or turned into a symbol. The image on this opening slide is Louis Bourgeois' Maman, a monumental spider. It introduces a key idea for today. Sculpture can hold contradictions. A form can be frightening and protective in the same time. As we go, keep asking a simple question. What emotion is being made physically here? By the end of this lecture, you should be able to do three things. First, identify how modern and contemporary sculpture uses the body to express psychological states such as anxiety, trauma, and memory. Second, describe an important shift in modern sculpture, moving away from public monuments that celebrate heroes and toward private spaces and intimate structures, what we might call cells, room, or containers for memory. And third, compare 5 distinct approaches to human form, using 5 artists as our case studies: Louis Bourgeois, Constantin Brinkush, Alberto Giacometti, Kiki Smith, Anthony Gormley. Let's define the theme. In this lecture, we are looking at sculpture that uses the body, whether it's present, absent, or fragmented, just to stage memory, emotion, and inner life. The key phrase on the slide is that this sculpture often gives you internal feeling over external realism. That does not mean it is less real. It means the goal is not to copy the body accurately. The goal is to make experience visible: tension, fear, loss, longing, or care. The related terms on this slide: embodiment, interiority, trauma, uncanny, visceral, point to how these sculptures operate. They often feel close to the body, close to the skin, or close to a private experience. The image here is by Kiki Smith, is a very useful preview. It looks like a body, but it also looks fragile and exposed. It sets the tone for sculpture as an encounter. This theme matters because in modern and contemporary art, sculpture often feels less like a thing on the pedestal and is more like an experience. First, the body becomes a site where identity, trauma, desire, care, social meaning play out. Sculpture can make those ideas tangible. Second, materials can act like evidence. A surface can show touch, wear, vulnerability, or labor. Objects can carry their histories. And third, space matters. Many contemporary sculptures do not occupy space, they construct it. They build what feels like a psychological room that you enter with your own body. Bourgeois cells are a perfect example. You do not just look at them, you look into them, and the act of looking becomes part of the meaning of the artwork. Here are 5 terms to keep in mind. Embodiment meaning carrying through a body or body-like form. A sculpture can embody an emotion, not just represent a person. Biomorphic describes abstract forms that resemble living organisms, like organs, plants, bodies, rather than strict geometry. A found object is an existing object incorporated into art because of its history, texture, or associations. The uncanny is something familiar that becomes strangely disturbing. It is the feeling of recognizing something and being unsettled by it in the same time. And then we have abject with an A, refers to what triggers discomfort or disgust by crossing bodily boundaries. Things associated with leakage, injury, decay, or loss of control. This term is especially useful for artists like Kiki Smith. We will use the same four-step method you've been practicing. First, describe. Start with materials and scale. Is it hard or soft, heavy or delicate, large enough to dominate a room or small enough to feel intimate? Number two, analyze. Ask what happens to the body. Is it fragmented, distorted, idealized, or absent? What is emphasized? Skin, bones, posture, enclosure? Number three, context. Is this about a personal memory or does it point to a broader human experience? Does the work connect to a particular time, place, or social history? And number four, interpret. Make a claim. What emotion is being physically solidified here? Name the emotion and connect with what you can see. Here is our guiding question. How can a physical object hold a non-physical memory? Memory is not material. You can't weight it or measure it. Yet sculpture can make memory feel present through form, scale, and space. Look at the image on the slide. Bourgeois' Arch of Hysteria. It is a body, but it's also a frozen event. Tension caught in mid-air. The work suggests that memory is not only a story you tell. It can be a sensation stored in the body, a posture, a spasm, a tightness, a vulnerability. As we move to the artworks today, keep returning to this question. Each artist is very different. Our anchor artist is Louise Bourgeois, one of the defining figures of modern and contemporary sculpture. Why she matters? Well, let me give you more than three reasons, but we only have time for three. First, she turned personal memory into powerful, widely resonant forms. Her work shows how private experience can become public art without becoming a literal illustration. Second, she bridges multiple histories: surrealism, post-war sculpture, feminist art, while she's also remaining fiercely independent. Third, her sculpture often feels like psychology made visible. Instead of presenting stable bodies, she presents tension, protection, fear, intimacy, and enclosure. The key identifiers to remember are on the slide. Spiders as a mother figure, cells as memory rooms, and the body as fragment, tension, and vulnerability. This quotation is essential because it reframes the spider. Bourgeois calls the spider an ode to her mother, describing her mother as a weaver. That matters because a spider is often read as a monster. Bourgeois takes that fear and transforms it for all of us. The takeaway on the slide is a useful interpretive tool. The monster is actually a protector. The sculpture holds a contradiction, threat and care at once. When you encounter Maman, which I did in person, in Bilboa, your body reacts first because of its scale and its form. Then your interpretation can deepen. The spider becomes a complicated symbol of motherhood, protective, hardworking, also capable of fear. Let me give you a short biography on her life. It helps explain why memory is so central in her work. Bourgeois was born in Paris. Her parents restore tapestries. That early environment matters because it connects to later themes of repair, weaving, and fabric. Then she moved to New York in 1938 and lived and worked mainly there. Although she was associated with movements like Surrealism, Abstract Expressionism, she developed her voice independently. The slide notes a key source of drama. What happened? Her father, long affair with an English governess who lived in the family home. So bourgeois returned to feelings of betrayal, anger, vulnerability across decades of her work. What matters for us is not gossip, but the mechanism. Her art becomes a lifelong practice of processing memory through form. This slide gives you three signature methods that can help you recognize bourgeois' approach. Restoration and sewing. This act as a metaphor for emotional repair, fixing, stitching, holding together what has been damaged. Carving and cutting. This often operates as a metaphor for aggression, separation, and release of anger. And then the last one, the cell. This is one of her most important ideas, creating enclosed architectural spaces that trap memory. A cell is both a room and a mental state. Think of this not just as techniques, but as emotional strategies. You repair, attack, and contain. This is an image of Maman in Bilbao, Spain, which I mentioned I visited. So here are the basic facts about Maman. It is made out of bronze, stainless steel, and marble, and it stands over 30 feet high. Those materials already carry meaning. Bronze and steel feel strong, industrial, and permanent. Marble is traditional and fragile in these forms. Bourgeois uses a clash of materials to create a clash of feelings. The scale is crucial. A sculpture this large is not simply seen, it is encountered. You are made small underneath. The work uses the body as a measuring tool. Now let's analyze what Maman does. It turns a feared creature into a complex symbol of motherhood, protection, and threat. The complexity of this sculpture is the point. Notice the scale. The experience of looking up can feel like fear and reverence. The viewer's body becomes part of the meaning. Notice the uncanny. A mother is familiar, a spider is strange. Bourgeois fuses those ideas so the familiar becomes very unsettling. Notice the material contrast, a hard metal body paired with fragile marble eggs. The eggs introduce vulnerability again. They also introduce responsibility. Finally, notice the contradiction. The spider can feel like a terrifying predator, yet protective as a figure that carries and shelters eggs. So, the sculpture holds two truths at once. This slide introduces a different side of bourgeois, the cell. We are looking at a detail, but even from detail, you can see the key elements in her work. A metal cage-like structure, an interior space that feels private. The materials here, marble, metal, glass, create a tension between delicacy and confinement. Marble suggests something precious, metal suggests restriction. As you view this, begin to think about sculpture not as a single object, but as an environment that stages memory. This work builds a room where memory feels physical. It is an installation as psychology. Bourgeois places a model of her childhood home under the guillotine, trapped inside a cage. That combination is deliberately unsettling. The cell becomes a psychological space, a memory isolated from the rest of the world. It is enclosed, protected, imprisoned at the same time. The guillotine introduces the threat of being cut off, severed from the past, or pain of separation. There is an important viewer dynamic, voyeurism. We are forced to look through mesh and fences. We can see into her memory, but we cannot enter it. The distance is part of the meaning. Memory is visible, but not fully accessible to everybody. The sculpture is polished bronze, and it presents a hanging body frozen in extreme tension. Even before interpretation, the physical facts matter. It is suspended. It is not grounded. The body is held in the air, which can make you feel vulnerable and exposed. The term hysteria has a long and problematic history, especially in how women's bodies were medically and culturally labeled. Bourgeois uses the word to signal psychological crisis, but she does not give us a tidy diagnosis. She gives us a body caught in the moment of and intensity in time. This work suspends the body like a frozen moment of psychological crisis. Notice the body is headless and gender ambiguous. Even though it was modeled on a male assistant, removing the head shifts the work away from identity and towards sensation. We read the body as a symptom, not as a portrait. Now notice the pose. The arch can suggest pain, ecstasy, loss of control, or all of this at once. The ambiguity keeps going on. Notice fragmentation again. The missing head forces us to focus on muscles, curvature, strain, vulnerability. And then notice the reflection. The polished bronze can catch the viewer's face and the surrounding space. Your presence enters the work visually, which suddenly pulls you out into a scene of tension. So we have few themes here. This slide gives you three. Three themes you can claim, you can use as a mini thesis statement. Theme number one, the fragmented body can express psychology more strongly than a complete figure. Fragmentation focuses attention on sensation, tension, weight, vulnerability, and the pose becomes meaning. The body reads like a symptom. Theme number two, sculpture can act as a container for memory. An environment that holds feeling. Installation turns viewing into time spent, and objects function as traces, evidence of a story without a fully narration. And theme number three, the uncanny, makes the familiar emotional world feel strange and therefore visible. A nurturing idea can appear as a frightening form, and your own body reacts first. Emotion become part of the interpretation. So now we are expanding beyond Bourgeois' work. These four artists give us four different directions for thinking about body and psychology. Constantin Brancusi is the root. He reduces the body to essential form, like a memory distilled. Then we have Alberto Giacometti, is the existential. In the post-war period, the human body became a fragile present. Kiki Smith is visceral. She brings the body close to vulnerability, myth, and the boundaries of the self. Anthony Gormley is the universal. He uses the body as a measure of space and solitude, often asking us to locate ourselves in relation to the figure. Brancusi is sometimes called a modernist grandfather because his work helped define early 20th century sculpture. His connection to our theme is basically simplification. He reduces the body to smooth, timeless forms. That reduction can feel like memory. Details fade, and what remains in the sculpture is actually essence. Brancusi also connects to Bourgeois in an important way. Both of them show that psychology can live in form. Meaning is not only in stories or biographies, it can be in shape, weight, and proportions. The key term to take from here is abstraction. Understand as seeking the essence of the subject rather than the surface in the details. So this artwork is Brancusi, The Kiss. Describe what you see. Two block-like figures merge into a single compact form. A key modernist idea here is the truth to the materials. Even if the work is plastered in this version, it preserves the sense of carved block. It does not pretend to be soft flesh. Also notice the unity. The two bodies are barely distinguishable. Their faces and arms are merging, turning love into a single sign. This is also a clear rejection of academic realism. There is no modeling of muscle or skin. Brancusi gives the idea of intimacy distilled into a simple, timeless structure. Giacometti's work is often linked to existentialism and the post-war sense of anxiety. His connection to the theme is direct, sculpture representing the human condition as fragile and exposed. Like Louis Bourgeois, he's using the body to show inner states rather than ideal beauty. But where Bourgeois often stages memory through symbolism and rooms, Giacometti often stages isolation through presence. A figure that seems distant even when you stand very close by to it. The key idea is to remember the fragility, not only physical thinness, but existential vulnerability. Describe the figure. Emanci- Emaciation, elongated, reduced almost to a line. Notice the surface. It is rough and nervous. Fingerprints and modeling marks remain visible. That texture matters because it feels unsettled and provisional, as if the figure is still becoming of some sort. Notice the psychological effects. Even when viewed up close, the figure can feel distant and alone. It is a body, but it reads like a sign of endurance, moving forward while exposed. Giacometti turns a walking figure into an image of a human persistence under the pressure. The body becomes a measurable vulnerability. Kiki Smith brings the body into a different register. It is visceral, mythic, and vulnerable. Her connection to the theme is that the body becomes a site of fear, agency, and transformation. She often works close to the boundaries of the body, what the body contains, what it releases, what it contains, and also what it hides. She connects to Louis Bourgeois because both explore vulnerability and power through forms that can feel very uncanny. The familiar body becomes strange, and the strangeness makes the emotions visible. So the materials in her artworks are wax, paper, glass, metal because they are fragile. They resist the heroic performance of traditional sculpture. They emphasize vulnerability. This work uses beeswax figure, and the material choice is a major part of the meaning. Beeswax can be resembling human skin, but is soft and susceptible. It feels temporary. That fragility pushes the work away from monumentality in sculpture. Notice the posture. The body hangs limply. It is not heroic or triumphant. It suggests exposure and loss of control. The slide highlights themes of shame, leakage, and bodily boundaries. This is where the term abject with an A can be helpful. The work confronts what culture often asks us not to see. Smith uses material and posture to make this vulnerability undeniable. The sculpture stages the body as a place where fear and agency coexist. So Anthony Gormley, another one of my favorite artists, often begins with a cast of the human body, but his real subject is how bodies exist in space. His connection to the theme is the viewing becomes self-awareness. You become more aware of your own body, your scale, your position, your distance, because the sculpture set up a spatial encounter. He connects to Bourgeois in a useful way. Both artists create meaning through the viewer's physical experience. Scale, distance, space are not neutral. They are part of the artwork. The key idea here is relationship. How the body relates to the space, the horizon, solitude, and time. This artwork consists of 100 identical cast iron figures based on the artist's body. Notice multiplicity. One body becomes many bodies. That repetition can suggest universality, but it can also suggest loneliness multiplied. Notice the environment in which is staged. The figures are placed outdoors and tides interact with them. Nature changes the work continuously. Time becomes visible through weathering, submersion, and exposure. The figure act like a silent witnesses. They do not perform, they stand. They look, they endure. The human body becomes a measure of time and a marker of presence in the world. So let's bring the 5 approaches together. Louis Bourgeois gives us the traumatic body, fragmented and symbolic, where sculpture becomes psychology. Konstantin Brancusi gives us the essential body, smooth and unified like a distilled memory. Alberto Giacometti gives us the anxious body, thin and rough, a fragile presence. Kiki Smith, the vulnerable body, soft, visible, visceral, and close to bodily boundaries. And then Anthony Gormley gives us the universal body, a measure of space and presence. So this synthesis is important for studying. It helps you compare artists using a consistent set of terms. So please use this slide as your study guide. Know the vocabulary terms. We talk about embodiment, biomorphic, found objects, uncanny, and abject with an A. Know the themes claims. Modern sculpture moves away from monuments towards psychological interiority. Fragmented bodies can express inner life. Spaces and objects can hold memories. The uncanny makes emotion visible through form. Know the bourgeois facts. French-born, worked mainly in New York, turned personal memory into sculpture installation, used art to process childhood trauma. Signature works include the spiders and the cells. Also remember the 3 identifiers for bourgeois work: spiders, cells, and the body tension and vulnerability. Strong way to prepare for the quiz is to choose one artwork and explain it. Use 2 vocabulary terms and 1 theme claim backed up by specific visual evidences. Please use this slide to practice quick recognition. For bourgeois, Maman is the monumental spider. Cell is the cage memory. Arch of Hysteria is the suspended tense bronze. For the expansion artist in this course and this week, it's Brancusi, the kiss, is the block-like merged couple. Giacometti, walking man, is thin, elongated. Kiki Smith, untitled, is the hanging beeswax body. Gormley is another place, his work is repeated to cast iron figures in the outdoors environment. So the final slide of this presentation are the resources, and it's very important to produce your content. So I use primary images and sources from Wikipedia, the Museum of Art, MoMA, and then Guggenheim, Library of Congress, and Tate Modern. So always support your thesis on that. So the habit of relying on this reliable museum collections and object finding information is there. Then you build your analysis on the top that factual foundation. So with this, I finished the sculpture body memory psychology class for this week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm available.